So this video is going to be a continuation of our leptin series. So we've been talking about how leptin is such an underrated hormone. It's really important for allowing your brain to determine how much energy it has and to make metabolic decisions for itself. So what we're going to be getting into today is more the specifics of what to do with breakfast. Many people say it's the most important meal of the day, and I don't know if that's 100% true for leptin. You could definitely make an argument that it's just as important, if not more important, than some of the other meals. So without further ado, the first tip that I have is eat within 30 to 60 minutes of sunrise, not before. So a lot of us have this tendency of we're trying to get out the door, we got maybe kids we're trying to get ready for, we got work, so we're kind of shoveling food whenever it makes sense with our morning, right? Paying attention to when the sunrise came up was one of the biggest changes that I made for myself and made a huge difference for how hungry I was throughout the day. Because what I used to do is I'd wake up super early, like 5 o'clock, I'd make myself like a smoothie and some eggs, and I'd eat it all when it was pitch black outside. And inevitably what would happen is I'd feel super hungry, I'd eat a bunch, I'd never really feel full, and it'd be like 10:30 and I'd be like, gosh, I'm starving for lunch. Like I felt like I was crashing. It's like, when's lunch? And couldn't wait to get lunch because I felt like I was crashing like that whole hour and a half before lunchtime. And I was always like, what am I doing wrong? So I think one of the biggest things was eating too early before the sun comes up. Just like we talked about, our circadian rhythm is really tied to the sunlight. So our natural wake cycle starts when we get morning sun, which is a lot of red and orange frequencies. All of our artificial lights are really intense on the blue spectrum that confuses us and makes our body think it's the middle of the day. So when it's pitch black outside, your body's not really in any sort of mode to start activating that cortisol cycle. So what happens when we eat food, we're kicking on insulin, we're kicking on cortisol, and again, it kind of revs up our body into middle of the day mode before the day has even really started. So it throws the whole thing out of sequence and it can feel really confusing for your body. And I know that was the case for me. It was like, gosh, I don't know if I'm full or if I'm hungry or like what's going on. And then the energy was all over the place during the day. Second tip is, along with that, if you can eat 25 to 30 grams of protein with breakfast, that's an awesome start to the day because one, it's going to fill you up at that meal a lot. And it goes along with our next one, which is try not to eat much carbohydrates or even no carbohydrates with breakfast. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But if you get a good shot of protein before, or I should say, if you eat that 25 to 30 grams of protein with breakfast, it's going to keep you full at that meal and it's going to keep you really nice and even all the way up until lunch. So that's a great way to start the day. Now, when I say this, people are like, why would I not eat carbohydrates with breakfast? A lot of our breakfast is really based around carbohydrates. So we think cereals, we think bread, we think biscuits. So we got all these carbohydrates, like, donuts, whatever, like all these things that come at us for breakfast. So again, I want to encourage you to think about this in terms of your daily rhythm, because we are creatures of rhythm and a lot of our hormones, natural physiology is based around this. So the more you can live in alignment with that and the more you can support your natural flow, the easier it's going to be and the more everything just feels like it starts clicking for you. So what happens, same thing, carbohydrates are going to have by far the biggest impact on your insulin spike and your cortisol spike. So right along with this, your body's just kind of getting going for the day. The cortisol shouldn't be very high. So if we get this big insulin and cortisol spike where we're eating all these carbohydrates for breakfast, again, you're out of rhythm before the day even starts. So if you can keep them low or none, that's a really nice way to ease into the day and make sure everything stays right in rhythm. Because ultimately, blood sugar spike in the morning can really mess up your leptin for the entire day. And again, this becomes a vicious cycle because then we're feeling hungry throughout the day. You tend to grab more carbohydrates. Blood sugar is even more all over the place, messes up leptin even more. Brain is even more confused about, hey, how much energy do I have? So you feel like you're tanking. And the process repeats itself because then oftentimes you don't sleep well. You wake up the next day. You're feeling tired, you're feeling hungry, you're feeling like you need a shot of energy, carbohydrates sound really good, and the cycle repeats. So if you feel like you're stuck there, if you feel like, man, I always wake up and feel tired, I always feel like I don't sleep well, always feel like I'm hungry, never feel like I'm full, always want to grab like a sweet or a carbohydrate, really look at this because you may be closer than you think and it may be more of the timing of what you're eating more so than like what you're eating over the course of the day. So again, those are my best tips for breakfast. Again, quick synopsis, try to eat within 30 to 60 minutes of sunrise. 25 to 30 grams of protein, and ideally keeping the carbs low or no carbs with breakfast. So play around with it, see what works well for you, and support your body's natural rhythm.